To me, the American idea is a real simple story that I learned as a kid, which is in this country, nothing limits you to be who you want to be except your own effort and your own God-given talent. The condition of your birth, it doesn't determine the outcome of your life in this country. That's the American idea. Everybody has their own version of this story. But part of the problem, I think, is a lot of people are losing sight of this. In certain communities, there are people who don't believe that this is necessarily there for them or that their kids are going to be worse off. And that mindset is what we have to attack. It is there for everybody. The American idea is so unique and so special. It's these great principles that made this country special in the first place that we still have work to do to perfect upon them. But it's seeing these principles in life, in practice, in these communities is what is really inspiring.
Paul, almost 2 years ago, when we first met in Ohio, and after that, I was a bit amazed that a politician, after having lost an election, would express interest in knowing about issues. Why were you interested in learning about poverty? Why do you care?
It's something I've always cared about, but the visit that you and I had that day in Cleveland really touched a chord with me, and it rekindled within me a desire to learn more. And I think we've gotten so swelled up in this fight in Washington about, Republican ideas versus Democratic ideas in Washington, that we sort of forgot about listening to people who are actually making a difference, who are actually fighting poverty successfully, who are showing through the example of their lives how we can do a better job of helping people. I come from Janesville, Wisconsin, and I've met a lot of folks struggling. It opened my eyes to a whole new set of struggles that people have gone through. But in learning and hearing those stories, I also learned about the triumph of actually overcoming these challenges and how wonderful that is. People who had gone through the worst of all situations came through those situations and redeemed themselves and are helping make other people do the same thing. And so what I got from you that day in Cleveland was, to me, an inspiration and a calling. And I want to see if I can take this feeling and translate it into better lessons learned so that we can translate that into better action. I asked you to show me the face of poverty in America and show me the face of not only what people are experiencing, but the triumph of people who have overcome poverty and are helping others do the same. Poverty is complex, and not everybody is in the same kind of category. There are different kinds of poverty, and what we focused on was those in deep poverty. Right under our noses, in our very communities that we live in, we're seeing redemption, we're seeing hope, we're seeing inspiration, we're seeing success. When we were at Shirley Holloway, we were meeting with ex-drug dealers, ex-gang members. We met a guy who was the enforcer of a gang.
How are your midterms? Hey.
Sit down.
Hey, congratulations.
Who have turned their lives around, who have seen redemption, who is happy and able-bodied and excited about life and reuniting with their family and going on and reaching their potential.
Kurt Moore, that we met with Pastor Gerald Webster. Do you remember him?
Yeah. The car wash. Yeah, he's hiring. He's got all these people working for him now. These are heroes. These are people who are facing down all odds and succeeding. They, in turn, are paying it forward by helping make sure that other people don't make the same mistakes they made. Pulaski is a perfect example where government tried everything: more money, more police, more cameras. They had 14 gangs until they had local poverty fighters who actually came up with the violence-free zone idea, where they actually found people who had gone through these problems, who were former gang members, who served as mentors, who had credibility. They didn't have social degrees. They had real life experiences where they could tell young people in Pulaski, shape up, or this is going to happen to you. The lessons are in your lives, in the stories that you share, the relationships you build, the mentorship you provide, and the hunger that is being fed for hope. And as a result, in a couple short years, violence went down, 14 gangs went away, and people are taking high school more seriously, and all the academic metrics, they're doing well. The day we spent with Outcry in the Barrio in San Antonio was one of the most profound moments of my life. Seeing people at intake and then outtake, where people go through these programs and how they just rebuilt their souls, their lives, and their attitude toward life. That form of transformation cannot be done with a bill or a policy or some think tank white paper. It can only be done by the gift of a person offering themselves to another. What I decided to do as a policymaker was look at this entire war on poverty. Assess where we are, what we've done wrong. We spent trillions of dollars for 50 years, and we've barely moved the needle on poverty, and it's gotten even more entrenched in many areas. So if it's not working, why repeat that? And we've got to break that mold, which has given us this status quo, and go and learn from the people who are really on the front lines, actually fighting poverty successfully.
Poor people living in poverty have skills and talents at the end of the day, but we don't value that in a way that translates that we really understand. And one of the key ingredients that we exist among all of us is that we treat people like human beings.
And so I think that we have to be a little more humble in our policy making and respect people who are actually making a difference on the ground, and not pretend that government knows more or knows best.
We got our guys like Anton, who is here, guys who were former Crips, former Bloods, and we put them in the school. They went through the training and they became the violence-free zone in the school. And it was very successful to the point where it was a 93% increase in citizenship.
Use our market-based principles to focus on results. That's how we should measure success, and that is not in many ways how the war on poverty measures its success.
As a result of all of that, the school said we want to expand it to as many schools that need it. And we were happy about that until they said, now, but you can't use nobody who have a felon. Yeah. I said, well, you just shut down the program.
The federal government should be helping those who are on the front lines fighting poverty successfully by getting behind what they do, instead of trying to push them aside and parachuting in solutions that really aren't. Because there's no social program you could ever cook up in Washington, D.C. that can actually make the human transformation that people are affecting in these communities through these stories, through what they're doing.
The type of validation needed for the steps taken to be a youth advocate, an urban specialist is vital, especially when you have a powder keg under the scene, see? Because they can be the ones that control whether the city goes into riot or repentance.
If they don't do their work in a way that they're treating people like people, why should they get funded?
We've learned a lot. There's a poverty industrial complex that is sort of wedded to the status quo, that wants to keep funding what is being funded instead of asking basic questions as to whether the premise of these programs are working in the first place. And we have this approach to fighting poverty that is all based upon inputs, based upon the status quo and whether we're funding it enough or not, versus outcomes. Are we actually getting people out of poverty? There are amazing grassroots entrepreneurs who are in these communities doing this as a vocation. How do we scale this up? One of the critical principles in a market-based economy is collaboration. And we need to have all levels of society, local government, private sector, community, and federal government, making sure we're all pulling in the right direction. I was inspired at what people had gone through, what they have accomplished, and how they're helping others do the same. And it left me with a sense of inspiration and a sense of great hope and optimism that if we can see more of these stories replicated in other communities, then we can really break the back of poverty, that we can really have redemption in our communities and make a big difference and renew the American idea. And hopefully that's what people get out of this, which is not only am I inspired by these transformative lives, by what's happening, but I want to go find out where it is in my community, and I want to see more of this. And I, myself, whoever you are, can make a difference.